Good morning. We are now live, and so do we have the normal statutory note on the recording, please?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Port Health and Environmental Services Committee. My name is Rhys Campbell and I'm clerk to this committee. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. A recording of the public meeting shall be available on the City Corporation's website following the end of this meeting for up to 1 civic year. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And apologies recorded.
Apologies have been received from Alithia Silk, Stuart Thompson, Dawn Frampton, Simon Burrows, Deputy Giles Shilson, Deputy John Edwards, and Alderman Corsa Salmon in advance of this meeting.
And I think Simon Duckworth, you mentioned you need to leave at 12:30. So 12 o'clock. Okay, thank you very much. Any other apologies that anybody is aware of? No. So the next item.
Second item on today's agenda is members' declarations under the Code of Conduct in respect of items on the agenda. No declarations have been received in advance of this meeting. Do members have anything that they wish to declare?
Any declarations? No, thank you. Item number 3.
Minutes from the previous meeting. This item is for decision on pages 5 to 10.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm going to take matters of accuracy and any matters arising together. So first, anything on page 5. Page 6. 7. 8. 9. So not seeing any. Are they agreed as a true record? Thank you very much. And are there any matters arising? Marianne.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask for an update on the vape enforcement? Has compliance improved?
Gav, are you going to take this one? Or
that seems to work. Chairman, I'll need to go away and check that, but I can bring a comment back and circulate after this meeting.
okay, thank you for that. And if you can circulate yes to the whole committee, that would be great. Thank you very much. Any other matters arising? If not, we can move on to item number 4.
Item number 4, appointments to subcommittees and representatives to outside bodies. This item is for decision. Members should note that the appointment of a member to the Cross River Partnership remains outstanding. Is there any member who's interested in being appointed to this partnership?
Anybody interested in Simon?
If needed, given I have a role in Southwark as well, if you don't see that as a conflict, but more as a amplification.
I think that would be very helpful. So yeah. So Simon Duckworth. Thank you very much, Simon. Item number 5.
Item number 5, public convenience provision. This item is for information on pages 11 to 28.
Okay, so this is the one you've all been waiting for. And, you know, this is I'll just give a very brief introduction before I hand over the offices. I mean, this is our sort of opportunity to really get to grips with this issue, which does tend to come up at every meeting. And sort of rather than us dealing with the issue on the basis of essentially anecdotes, casework, individual circumstances, this is our opportunity to look at the whole issue in the round. And it is also an opportunity, whilst this is for information paper, it is obviously entirely open to members to make suggestions, proposals, though obviously taking into account what we are about to hear. And to introduce the paper, Ian Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. As Chair says, we've sought to bring all of the points and discussions to a well-rounded paper, we would like to think, similar to one we did 12 months ago. And it's just trying to make sure that we're able to demonstrate to members progress being made on the question of public toilet provision for the square mile. It's worth saying, just to start off with, that there's been a lot of significant progress in the last 12 months because this committee challenged us to say what more could we do on this within the currently agreed budget envelope? How could we maximise the effectiveness of what we're providing? So what you see in the paper before you, and Joe will take you through some of the actions in detail, was a fair reflection of the debate and discussion from the previous report 12 months ago. I appreciate some members may not have been on the committee at that time, but the context for this is that there were and continue to be financial constraints within which we can work, but we were looking to deliver a combination of short, medium and long-term improvements to the way in which public toilet provision is made available within the square mile. So we have, from a short-term perspective, improvements in comms and wayfinding. We've got refurbishment work that's underway in some of the toilet provision that we have. And the long-term plan continues now to build that relationship with the Planning and Transportation Committee, and that's also referenced in the report. The financial challenges, when we looked at toilet provision 2, 3, 4 years ago, was in the context of having to deliver savings because the budget envelope for this committee was being reduced. There was a quite considerable degree of effort put into looking at options at the time around not just toilet provision, but also how much money we were spending on keeping our streets clean. And those were difficult choices made at the time. The financial challenges remain, and I appreciate members often focus on the 2 staffed toilet facilities that we provide that are standalone, and the cost of those, running those in a revenue sense, continue to be significant at a net cost of over £500,000 a year, just to set the context. Everything we understand about the new government funding settlement for local government and for London is likely to mean that funding will be reduced at a corporate level, and we know that within the medium-term financial plan, the Chamberlains are looking at the likelihood of reducing budgets further. We don't know the extent to that yet, but it's again just setting context that last time you challenged us to do these things within the existing budget envelope, and at the moment that absolutely remains the case. We are looking to maximise what we have, not just in terms of revenue usage, but also investment through cyclical works programme into the facilities we have. But as it stands at the moment, we do not have further funding available to add to the core provision that we provide. And that is part of the reason why we've expanded out our investment in our own facilities, whether that's our car parks or Guildhall and signage around those buildings, or whether it's continued to build that partnership with the private sector. Places like One New Change have had their lease agreements reiterated by other parts of this organisation, saying they need to make more of the fact they have public toilets available. So that public and private provision together is what's actually providing a quite extensive element of public toilet provision across the square mile. So with that context, I'll pass over to Joe, who'll take you through some of the items within the report.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. So as Ian said, I'll just be taking you through some of the details. We took away some actions around about a year ago to come back and update members on those specific actions. So I'm going to run through those now. I think the first thing, and perhaps the biggest thing, it was recognised that there is, I think, more provision of public conveniences within the square mile than a lot of people realise. And we acknowledge that the signage and wayfinding to those facilities was not up to scratch, to be honest, and there was a lot of things we could do to take away and improve that. So one of the things we've done is liaise with colleagues in the transportation team and colleagues at TfL. All of the wayfinding, so the legible London signs across the square mile, had officers out auditing those to see, is the information about toilets on those accurate, and if it is accurate, or where it isn't accurate, can we make sure it is accurate and replace them? So to that end, 230 of those signs will be updated. The project and that is starting at the end of this month. That will be phased approach in 3 phases and happen over the next year or so, focusing on the areas, I think initially actually around London, the Museum of London, because the signage out there around there is quite outdated, but also then on the areas around Tower Hill and Paternoster to make sure that when people look at those signs, they're directed to the toilets. The second, I think, comment and correctly by members was sometimes people prefer physical paper maps. So we've produced several thousand of those. They've gone, and we've just actually reordered them. There's some behind you if you'd like to take those away with you. They're in place at the City of London Information Centre, at the Guild, and all of the City of London properties, so Guildhall, libraries, etc. And they show all of the toilets available within buildings, but also a link through to the community toilet scheme via a QR app. The mapping online, which we host via our GIS platform, City Maps, we've been through that to make sure that that is accurate and up to date. All of the information on it in terms of opening hours, etc., is correct. And we take the approach that we make sure that information is accurate. And then there's a plethora of toilet finding apps out there. If you go to the App Store, they will all use open source data, and they will pull the data from our GIS map. So as long as that information is correct, that the data pool will be correct as well. We did look into Google Maps. I think, suggested to my members, it's a little bit difficult. Our 2 staff toilets are on it, but where it's a toilet which is secondary function to that building, it is difficult to then get it on there as a toilet. For example, the Guildhall Art Gallery is primarily an art gallery and not a toilet. So we have looked into that, and there may be some things we can do with colleagues in GIS to improve that. You'll notice, hopefully, that there's signage installed on the north wing, the west wing at the NLA, which indicates that toilets are for public use within the Guildhall. And if you look over my shoulder here, very nicely, we've got a large toilet sign outside the Guildhall Art Gallery, which indicates that members of the public can use that as a public toilet as well. We've also undertaken refurbishment at the car parks. So Castle Baynard is pretty much complete now, and we've installed some signage there. We're going to update that slightly once the refurbishment's been complete. And Tower Hill toilets, which is our busiest public convenience, is undergoing significant refurbishment plans as we speak. So that has meant that we're closing down half of it, dividing it up, and then closing down another half of it. But we thought it was really important to ensure that that was open for the whole of the period of Christmas. So that is being undertaken. We've also worked on making that more accessible. So there'll be a change in places toilet there now, which there wasn't previously. And again, through member suggestions, we have worked with the worshipful company of spectacle makers to look at making it much more accessible for people with visual impairment. So, and that comes down to the type of basins installed and the contrasting colours and things like that. So we're taking that forward as well with any future refurbishments of public conveniences. On to Eurolifts. I think, unfortunately, it's rather a moot point around that. We did undertake a survey to identify any additional locations, but just as we'd finished that survey, we got a notification from the HSE that they recommended that we close all of those due to the incident in Westminster. Their recommendation was that they were safe to remain open, but very quickly, obviously, within hours of receiving that notification, the units were closed, and we await further notification from the HSE on that. We do continue to collaborate with City of London Police and Park Guard. We've got a very kind of a really kind of active officer group around that, where we're liaising on a weekly basis, notifying each other of areas of specific antisocial behaviour problems. So we're working really proactively on that. Scheduled cleansing, we can schedule a cleansing in for a specific area wherever appropriate. And we have really fast ad hoc response times as well, so we can cover that off. We've put in place a temporary improvement up on Fan Street where it was identified there was an issue with urination in a corner. We put a planter in there and some signage, and spoken to the nearest community toilet scheme pub there. And if you scan a QR code there, it takes you directly to the pub. So we've done a bit of work there, and that's the sort of temporary programs that we can install very quickly. And longer term, we're working with the public realm team where we have known areas of antisocial behaviour to see how we can design out opportunities for antisocial behaviour. And we have an interesting communication campaign planned for over Christmas. I won't go into too many details of it. It involves Santa Claus and getting a fine, a fixed penalty notice. So hopefully, Blackfriars, again, members asked us to go away and look at that now. So as part of the provision in the new public realm area there, Tideway were obligated to provide back the public convenience provision that was there previously. They have done that. It's not quite finished. We went down there about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The cost, as Ian outlined to us, fully reopening that and staffing that up would be around about £130,000. So it is costly. We don't currently have that within local risk budgets. What we are looking at is a couple of options: opening it up as a bit of as an ad hoc toilet during busy periods, or events, for example, the Lord Mayor's Show, London Marathon being the obvious ones, but also working with surveyors who are developing plans for the Undercroft, because there might be some complementary uses there. So they might, for example, get some commercial premises in there which might require access to public conveniences, and there might be some that might be able to underwrite the cost of those facilities. So that's an ongoing discussion with colleagues there. The community toilet scheme currently has 69 premises in it. Each of those can claim £600. I appreciate this has previously been subject of quite a bit of discussion. We have increased, we've got stickers here, increased the size of the stickers which are placed in all of the facilities. There's a QR code on there as well, linking people that use it through to the map on our website. So that should all be up to date. Appreciate, obviously, trying to measure the impact of that is very difficult, because it's difficult knowing if somebody's gone into a premises to use specifically the toilet, or if they're just using the toilet because they're in the premises. To do a survey of that and quantify that is quite difficult. But what I would say is that we are regularly contacted by other local authorities looking to copy that scheme. So Westminster are looking to launch that. We're part of a forum on toilets within central London boroughs. Camden have just launched a community toilet scheme, and they're looking for recruits into that at the moment. They're paying £750 for business. So it is seen as an example of best practice, and does help complement facilities, and at different times of the day when our staff facilities aren't open. I think the big sort of long-term gain is around planning. So again, as Ian's mentioned, we've worked really closely with colleagues in planning and members as well that are sitting on Planning and Transportation Committee, and there is now wording included within the city plan as well as the London plan that all major developments with retail and leisure offerings are required to provide public toilets during their hours of operation. Obviously, the soonest one of those coming online is the Museum of London, which is going to be open next year, which has public toilet provision within it. And there's several, I think 5 developments listed within the appendices coming on in future years, which also have provision in that to provide public conveniences. I think that is just about it. There is a piece in there about future funding, but I'm sure that will come up in discussion, and Ian has sort of elaborated on that as well slightly. Obviously, we are more than happy to take questions, suggestions, ideas. I realise that the input of members of the committee has been really useful in the past, and has directed a number of work streams and sort of practical things which have been implemented over the past year. So I appreciate members' input on that.
Okay, so we'll go to questions and discussion. Simon Duckworth.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a great paper, but it's really an observation on a slightly binary set of equations. So if we know that there isn't a statutory responsibility, and we know there are financial pressures which we can't afford things, how do we extrapolate what might be possible? In other words, what exists between the provision of a staffed facility and a non-staffed facility? Now, health and safety implications there, but can that be managed in a way which is less income using? And equally, if you've got a paper which says that you haven't changed your fee basis for a decade, the idea that £1 would be unaffordable to someone who can afford the bus fare, the taxi fare, the train fare to come into London, to go to the sites, knowing the sort of charges which are made at the moment, it does seem a slightly short-term view. Isn't that an absolutely logical thing to do? That's not going to mean there isn't a delta, but at least the delta would be £250,000 less if you moved it from 50p to £1 and it's still a single coin. £1 is a lot of money, and not a lot of money given what we pay for everything else.
Okay, I'm going to take questions in groups. Henry.
Thank you. I notice the paragraph on SIL funding, which I imagine is section 106, and on-street parking fund, which doesn't explain. It says there are criteria against using that fund for public conveniences. Have we stretched that? Because I'm sure there would be some, we could get some use out of it. And third of all, the bids. What discussion have we had with the bids? Because that actually would be something added value from the bids across the city, and how much would they be prepared to spend?
Okay, so if I can take those points, so about charges and additional potential sources of funding, Ian or Joe.
Yeah, we'll do a two-hander on some of these.
Okay.
And so if I can start with the funding questions and around SIL and on-street parking and the bids. On-street parking has to be for on-street public realm enhancement. And so we have stretched the boundary of that funding to supplement the on-street cleaning, which, if members remember, we actually had to cut that back as part of those cuts from 3-4 years ago. So from an on-street parking reserve perspective, we have definitely extended the boundary of what's possible for this committee in the round. Unfortunately, off-street public conveniences don't sit within that. In terms of SIL, where we have got positive response in terms of what a SIL bid could be possible for is the capital investment. If what we wanted to do is refurbish a place, what it won't pay for is ongoing revenue costs. SIL will not pay for staffing costs because it is infrastructure that it will pay for. So it will get us part of the way there, but not pick up the running costs. The bids is an emerging question. We have had conversations with individual businesses about their willingness to fund some of these things. There is something of a reset coming within town clerks for next year about our working relationship with the bids and setting baselines and having a more proactive conversation about what funding they have and where they might want to prioritise. So we are having that already on street cleaning and gardens maintenance, but this is another area that we will fold into that. So it is something we will be looking to explore in the first part of next year in terms of that. I think also if I pick up the fees and charge, it is a debate that was had here previously. Perhaps we didn't include something directly about it, because we know that actually there were strong views on both sides of the equation last time around. We're conscious of the fact that a number of other facilities in the square mile are provided free of charge, Network Rail being the obvious example, because it's folded into their overall management of the station. As comes to, Joe will say a bit about that question about staffed versus unstaffed facilities. We are very conscious of the fact that not just is there a question about ability to pay and in terms of coinage, but there is always the question that if people don't pay, what are the outcomes of that? The antisocial behaviour side of things. It is a challenging question. I think we will not, this paper isn't bringing a decision on that, because we're conscious that if financial pressures might lead us towards how do we close some of that funding gap, it might be something that we have to consider. We don't need to do it right here, right now, because that £500,000 net cost is budgeted for in our budgets at the moment. Should that change, we will have to look at a number of options, which could include fees. Joe, if you want to talk about the staffing issues.
Thank you. Yeah, on the staffed versus unstaffed toilets, you're absolutely right. We could potentially operate at Blackfriars, for example, unstaffed. We have in the past had automatic public conveniences, so APCs, one at Monument, several other one on Long Lane. They were subject to a significant amount of antisocial behaviour, unfortunately, and that is what I would see as the biggest risk. We open something up which has got free and unfettered access, and it becomes abused, and look very nice very quickly, I'm afraid, and that's the reality of the situation. Yeah, I won't make any comment on other unstaffed facilities that I've been into, but what I would say is that ours that are staffed are very well maintained. We have very few instances and issues at them.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll just add something in relation to the bids, because I had some involvement with the discussions with EC bid when we got the additional support from them on the street cleansing. And at that point in time, they made it very, very clear that they did not see themselves in the business of providing local authority functions where it was additional expenditure or where there'd been a cut, and reinstating that cut. And we got that support from EC bid only because we were ourselves reinstating the additional street cleansing. So the chances, I think, of going to them and saying, can you fund the reopening of some public conveniences, is pretty low according to what their stated position is in terms of what they see themselves as doing or not doing. Now, I've got a number of speakers, which I'll come to in a minute, but one thing I'd like to focus on a little is that we've talked about, can we get more money? Where can we get more money from? Can we increase the charges? I think one fundamental thing we need to decide is, if we were able to get additional money, why do we want that money? What would we do with it? Okay, so the point I'm making is that, let's say we were able to sort of raise additional funding from increasing the charges or from external firms. Why are we doing that? Is it to reopen bank? Is it to reopen monument? Is that actually what we want to do? What is the objective? Because you need to have the objective first. And every cost has an opportunity cost. And if we were able to raise an additional £250,000, say, is putting it towards reopening a particular public conveniences, is that what we would want to spend the money on? So I think it's important that we look at both sides on this discussion, which is, can we get more money, but also what would we do with it? And then I've got Hugh Selker next, then I've got Marianne, then I've got Layla and Jazz. Hugh.
Thank you, Chairman. This report seems to be based on the assumption that we need more public conveniences, and I think that's something that we have all subjectively observed, and the antisocial behaviour that we've seen from public urination kind of confirms that. But are there any standards or guidelines setting out the required level of public convenience provision for various levels of footfall or nighttime establishments or whatever? And if so, how do we compare against them both today and thinking about the pipeline of new buildings and new public conveniences coming on stream in the future? If we were able to do such modelling work, it might allow us, A, to make the case more effectively for more public conveniences if that's what's required, but B, also to target our efforts more specifically in terms of either times of the day or specific locations within the city. Chairman.
Okay, I'll take Marianne's question and then we'll come back.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a few points and they're a bit all over the place because they've just come into my head. Appendix 5, you've got the new builds which have condition where they have to have toilets. There's no guarantee they're going to be delivered within that time scale, but there's a number of buildings which have been refurbished which do not come to planning, and therefore if they do not come to the planning committee, can we have assurances that officers are encouraging refurbishments to include public accessible toilets, and that might increase the number. Provisions at stations, I know there's a comment in there, but I've got that down as well. Liverpool Street Station do not charge for their toilets use now, and it's brilliant. It's clean, it's tidy, it's well designed to reduce antisocial behaviour. And I personally would like us to push Transport for London Network Rail to have more of those provisions across their network within the city. We're very blessed with tube stations and mainline stations. Real hubs, but you know, they do need to have those facilities for people travelling in and leaving, otherwise they end up with antisocial behaviour on their trains. So if we could just push that element. The list and the maps are really great, but how many toilet units do we actually have? What's the gender breakdown and the accessibility toilet number? If we actually have the unit number, bearing in mind we know that 600,000 people come into London to work, they're probably fine because they've got offices to go to, but it's the visitor number. So we can actually work out the unit per visitor, and that will help us benchmark against other councils and other tourist areas if we want to encourage more people into Destination City and to visit, which is a real fundamental part of having visitors. You need to provide toilet provision. And on the list of the community toilet provision, I think most of them are pubs, which is wonderful, but some people wouldn't feel comfortable marching into a pub. But we equally have a large number of hotels now. So why haven't we approached those? And if we were going to use the extra funding, I know the toilet barrier scheme, we've always said we don't want too many because it hits our budget. But if we had the extra money, perhaps reaching out to the hotels who are open 24/7 and encouraging them to become part of the toilet scheme. They're family and tourist accessible. There's no barriers to them. That could be one way of increasing the number in the short term whilst the new developments come online. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so there's quite a lot to go with there. So Hugh's point first and then Marianne's points.
Yeah, I'll take Hugh's. Standard for toilets, there's not anything I'm aware of. We have done a bit of benchmarking with Westminster and Camden in terms of number of public conveniences. I think it varies on exactly what you classify as a public convenience. Westminster obviously have a lot more. They list on their website, for example, John Lewis, or there's quite a few on Oxford Street, which bumps the numbers up quite a bit. But if we looked at, we thought perhaps the West End in entirety was perhaps a little bit more comparable. They have 3 public conveniences. We have 2 across the square mile. We have a similar amount actually a lot more in public buildings than they obviously do in the West End. What they do have there is temporary toilets, which they bring in of a weekend, urinals, and drop them down of a Thursday, Friday night, and then take them on a Monday morning. I'm not sure whether that's something which members would want to look at or pursue. I'm obviously more than happy to take suggestions and ideas. My instinct on that is it perhaps could cause more issues as well than it resolves, but again, happy to take members' opinions on that. So yeah, we've done some benchmarking. I think if you look at us compared to the West End, we're more than Islington, for example, more than Camden, but yeah, we're about comparable, I'd say, with the West End.
And just to say, it was, I think it's part of the introduction, but just to reiterate, there isn't a required level because it's not a statutory function. So it's different from some other services that we provide because government doesn't legislate that we have to provide it. So benchmarking is against comparable areas is still appropriate. If I pick up some of the points from Ms. Fredericks, in terms of refurbishment and planning, absolutely. I think we appreciate the nature of planning development is changing from full demolition rebuild into refurbishment. So we'll continue to work with our planning colleagues to try and make sure that we take every opportunity we can through that process to bring the question of publicly available toilets into that discussion. In terms of TfL and Network Rail, I think Network Rail, the story there is really positive. I think at least Cannon Street, Blackfriars, Liverpool Street Station, London Bridge, which isn't on this map, but obviously it's a big commuter hub for city commuters. All of those, and I probably missed some, are all provided with public conveniences. I think they're very aware of the nature of the offer that they have to provide. In terms of TfL, and I appreciate it was a question asked online about TfL. At the last mayoral election, the mayor set aside funding to develop the number of public conveniences across the London Underground network. And there's a direct benefit of that. There were TfL opened public toilets at Bank Station, albeit at the Cannon Street exit end within the gate line. They have, of course, the entirety of the tube network to consider. They are prioritising where they would look to spend that further funding. I think they had about a 3-year rolling programme, at least, of funding being provided from the Mayor to TfL. So we will be working with them to see where else they could bring that investment to bear within, can it be brought to bear within the square mile. And the hotels piece, Joe, if you're able to close that for community toilets.
Sure, yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. Historically, I think there are a couple of hotels on there, but I think certainly your observation is right. There's obviously more and more hotels coming within the square mile, and I think, yeah, we will certainly send officers out to speak to them, and if any members have got any contacts at any of those hotels that might be able to help us leverage that decision, that would be fantastic. So yeah, we'll certainly send the team out and go speak to as many of those hotels as possible. And then I think just in terms of the numbers units, obviously we know it for our 2 staffed facilities. When you're looking at other ones, it's slightly more complicated, but we've got 22 units for ladies at Tower Hill, 10 for men's, and 2 banks of 8 urinals, and 18 ladies at Paternoster, and 12 in men's cubicles and plus urinals. It's quite a significant, quite a large scale public toilets.
Okay, thanks. Layla and then Jazz, and then Henry again.
As a new member, I was astonished to discover that the 2 facilities cost net £500,000 a year to run. That seems really expensive to me, but they are very luxurious to be in. And I wondered, are the car park toilets much cheaper? I mean, is this the most economic way of the use of our resource? And my second question was to do with the 69 businesses. Are they happy for us to make as much noise as possible about the fact that they're open to anybody to use? Because until I saw this map, I had no idea that, people would be encouraged to go into a pub or a business. And also there are some that aren't on this list, like the facilities in the Legal and General building on London Wall, which has a lovely big sign saying public toilets, which suddenly appeared out of nowhere. But so, that's great. So are these other 69 businesses, are they delighted for us to make more noise about the fact that they welcome people popping in to use their facilities? Thank you.
Okay, I'll take Jazz's question and then come back to you if I can.
If I just answer the, sorry.
I don't mind. Oh, okay. Just a couple of points from me. So the payments by card, it's 50p. Are we charged any transaction fee with that? And then regarding TfL, are we informed if any of the loos are closed? Because obviously that has a big impact if Blackfriars or Liverpool Street or something's closed. And then just regarding our city plan, we're going to be seeing an increased amount of office space, which means increased footfall. There's all the work being done on Destination City, but obviously it comes down to you guys to fund the loos. Are we liaising with those departments? Because I'm aware Destination City has a fund. Are we able to tap into any of that? Because it just seems really crazy that we're doing all this promotion saying come to the city, but then we can't fund the basic provisions. Finally, on the Google Maps, if anything can be done to enhance to be honest, I didn't know that there were all these apps. That sounds amazing, but crazy. And also, are we doing anything with City London? Because they're doing a lot on their social media to promote international and foreign guests. There could be something, I don't know what you would do in the content around loos, but you could have some provision around that, because most of the time, if you're a foreign person coming here, how are you meant to know what provisions you can get?
Okay, thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. Thank you for stepping in earlier. Thank you. If I'll pick up car parks, TfL and Destination City. If I've asked Joe to think about the community toilets, publicity, a transaction fee in Google. So we'll split the two between us. The car parks, actually the signage that you see on London Wall is advertising the toilet that's in the public car park underneath London Wall. So that doorway that you see on the corner of Coleman Street and London Wall takes you down the staircase and the lift to the public toilets at that end of the car park. That is, I guess, the challenge is that if you think about the public conveniences that we're managing in car parks or this building, they're being monitored, maintained, managed by existing contracts by people on site. So the car park attendants monitor the occupancy, they monitor the usage as part of their inspections of the car parks. The challenge with Tower Hill and with St Paul's and Paternoster Square is that there is nobody else, so we have to have somebody there to keep on top of what may or may not be going on. So in a car park, your antisocial behaviour isn't just about what's happening in the toilets, it could be in the car park for itself, so it's absorbed within that. So what this debate discussion has done though is enabled us to reprioritise money that we had in the cyclical works programme for general maintenance in the car parks to the toilets, because if we're going to advertise and better their usage, they need to be of a standard that people are happy and comfortable to be in there. So that's certainly now the case at Baynard House, and Tower Hill will be enhanced as well. TfL, I don't think they keep us aware of when they have their toilets closed, but that's something between them and Network Rail. We've got enough contacts with them. I think that's a useful idea. Destination City, we work very carefully and very closely with the Destination City team. They're also the same team facilitating the discussions with the bids. They are keen to make sure that we're aligned because they appreciate the debate often mixes these two, the fact that Destination City is there and wanting the city to be the best it can be to attract people to live, work, visit here. We have to have a whole broad range of frontline services. So whether it's public toilet provision, street cleaning, road maintenance, air quality, the whole raft of things that we pull together, that we're embedded within the discussion going on about how best to prioritise our services to make sure we're fitting with that Destination City message. Joe, do you want to pick up the other ones?
Thanks, Ian. So firstly, transaction fees on cards. Yes, there is a transaction fee. It's 5% of that, which is pretty standard, and it's sort of equitable to the fee that we charge for sort of the cash collection on the cash side of it as well. So it's not more expensive nor less expensive on that side of things. We still do both at the toilets. The split is obviously moving towards more cashless, but actually still quite a lot of cash gets taken at the toilets. In terms of the community toilet scheme and are they happy for us to tell? But absolutely, they are. It's part of the condition. They all have stickers within their in the windows that should be clearly visible. They're audited at least once or twice a year. They know that they will be on the City of London website, and they are able to claim £600 from us to help, I suppose, contribute towards the cleaning the toilets and keeping them in good condition. So yeah, absolutely, they're happy. In terms of wider promotion, again, it's always slightly challenging on that, and like I said, more than happy to take sort of members' suggestions on how better we can more widely promote the toilets. I think about the City of London is a good idea. We'll see how willing they are to have on toilets on their feed and their Instagram and things like that. But yeah, we're more than happy to push that through them, and yeah, we'll liaise with Destination City team on that.
Okay, so I'm going to go to another round, including the deputy chair. Just two points I'd like to come in on. The Destination City, it was very much making the case that if Destination City wants to be successful, we have to have clean streets. And that was one of the key levers that we used in getting the additional funding for the street cleansing, was that, you know, if you're saying come here to visit, to shop, to work, to live, but then you can't keep the streets clean, then that's a problem. So that leverage continues. The question is what funding pot, any new service or increase in costs of a service you're going to do. We were able to find the parking reserve, but that's not free money. That's money that we got for the street cleansing that could have been spent on something else. And it's always the case that we find money, we could spend it on something else. Now I've got Henry again, then Tim Butcher, then the deputy chair.
Apologies, Chairman, coming back. Two things. On this list of community toilet scheme provision, it seems a remarkably low number of venues. I hope we are going out to every venue in the city, given that we've got more hostelries per square hectare than anywhere else in Europe. I'm sure we could add add there? And would it be something we could discuss with licensing, for example, alongside their Safety Thirst Awards, is to put a line in where they can get some good points by providing community toilet provision? That's just one thought. The other thing is on the Tower Hill one, does Historic Palaces, I think it's who runs Tower of London, do they contribute, given most of the people who may use those conveniences have either visited or will visit that building, and it's not ours?
Okay, thanks. Just before I go to Tim, on the community toilet scheme, interesting point, because I was having a conversation with my opposite number in another borough about the very thing. And one of the issues there is that there is a cost to us of them joining the scheme. And so there's no sense, if you've got 3 or 4 pubs all in a row, there's no sense that we don't want them all to join. So, you know, because that's an additional cost. But I'll then go to Tim Butcher for his question.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on the community toilet scheme, I wanted to congratulate officers on the new stickers, and I have noticed them, and they are much clearer. But I do think we do need to do some more publicity as to what the community toilet scheme is all about. So that's my first point. My second point is on the subject of the Uri lifts. Bottom line is we're not going to be able to ever use these things again. Is there a cost to leaving them in situ? Do we have to remove them? Is it was it a private company who operated them, or I don't know where we are with that, but I'd be interested to know. I'm just picking up Simon Duckworth's point on the costs. It'll be unsustainable in future for us to spend £500,000 running 2 public toilets. I mean, that is just not going to happen. So we're going to have to look at an alternative. I know we've had a discussion previously about going cashless, but you have to think about it. We haven't increased the cost for 10 years. Very few people carry 50p pieces. Very few tourists would be carrying cash. And I'd be very interested to see, as a decision not for now, but it must be put on the table. We must be able to increase this. What is the cost of emptying the cash, the security needed to collect the cash, versus the amount of cash that's been received? I'd like to see those figures, and that might help the committee in making a decision. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll just go to the Deputy Chair, then I'll come back to this.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think it's been really interesting debate, and some of the members have highlighted, and I'm sure we're all astounded at the cost of running 2-manned conveniences. But I've not heard anything detrimental about the community toilet scheme. Now, to me, that seems to be really low-hanging fruit. We've got 69 conveniences. That's costing us £41,500 a year. That's one person's salary for the year. So should we not be directing our efforts and putting our shoulder behind expanding the team along of what Deputy Fredericks made a fantastic suggestion? And we've got to and again, Deputy Butcher, I couldn't agree with you more. The time is right now to increase the charges on current charges. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. The percentage of cash is surprisingly still high. So bearing in mind we're charging 50p, I think the figure is over 35% of people are still paying by cash, and that means 35% of people are carrying 50p's. Now, in another world, in another area of my remit, we moved from parking from using cash to cashless, and that was maybe 10 years ago, and we were up to 95% cashless. So it was seamless in terms of just pushing that last 5-10% into using cards. I think we've been slightly hesitant because that is still quite a significant number of people in terms of accessibility and their ability to and willingness to pay. And I would suggest I think that's partly driven by the tourist nature of people using Tower Hill is that maybe they are not wanting to use credit cards abroad for a 50p transaction, so they are actually carrying cash. But I think the point is valid in terms of the financial position and the fact that that is only going to get more constrained. It's going to become more challenging. We do have reports that we bring forward to this committee about fees and charges. There's usually one just in the beginning of the calendar year setting fees and charges for the financial year ahead. It is something that we could consider as something within that report that the members might want to have a debate simply about fees and charges. This is deliberately something where we wanted to give you the information in the round. If the feeling in the room at least is to have that debate and that conversation, then we can certainly do that and set out some of those costs. I think in terms of costs between cash collection versus payment online, I don't think there's a large saving one way or the other. But that ability to flex your price is clearly easier if you're actually doing it with cashless. It just makes it much more simpler. And that's my one. I would say yes, Uri lifts. I think yes, but in theory, yes, there is a cost of removing the kit. At the moment, we're not intending to do that because we need to allow the manufacturer the opportunity to determine whether they can operate these in a safe way, and in fact maintain these in a safe way, which was actually the issue. So it's not for the foreseeable future. They are not causing a problem at the moment where they are because they're underground. At some point in the future it may be, but it's not a cost pressure that we need to consider quite yet. Joe, do you want to pick up anything else?
Okay, thanks for that. I've got Marianne, then John. I'll take John first because Marianne's had a couple of goes, but just before that, can I just take by sort of nods whether people would like the costs issue to come back to the committee when we renegotiate the costs, right? Okay, so yes, I will do that, and I'll just add to that point actually that we may be in a position where we're having to increase costs just to stand still. Because the other thing which came out of the meeting I had last week with London Councils and Business for London is that some of you may be aware of something called the Fair Funding Formula, which is going through Parliament at the moment, which essentially is going to reduce settlement from central government to inner London boroughs and redistribute some of that cash to boroughs in the North and the Midlands. And so we may well be in a situation where we're dealing with how we provide these services with less money, as opposed to we've got more money to spend, what are we going to do with it? So yeah, if we bring the charges to that meeting, John Foley, then I'll come back to Marianne.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, thank you very much indeed for this. I was really encouraged by this. I think it's since I joined this committee, this is the most encouraging paper I've seen of information. Thank you for the map. Thank you also, as Tim says, for the A4 signage, which I think is a huge improvement. I've just got two very pedantic points in my pedantic hat on. On page 17, and Joe, you mentioned Museum of London. Could it be always changed, please, to London Museum from now on paragraph 38 on page 17. And on Appendix 1, the Barbican Centre is not down for opening in the evening, which it should be, according to, just in case it's important for future use. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Marianne.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for letting me come back. I'd like to understand the funding ceiling, if you like, on the community toilet scheme. I was always told that we can't have too many because it just costs us too much. So perhaps we need to think outside the box and encourage venues to open themselves up to visitors and people in the city without actually giving that £600, but by advertising their business on our destination city websites and our bid websites, because that advertising is potential revenue for them, come in and special offers here or whatever. So that's perhaps another way that we could encourage them to be sort of charitable and opening up their facilities rather than actually paying them physical money, because at some point that's going to be unsustainable as well. We have those 2 toilets along the riverside. There's one by Stillyard Passage and there's one up by Tower Hill Station, which was the 50p coin that used to open, and I'm assuming that we got those via planning consent. They've been closed. Along the riverside, I'm constantly asked by people where the nearest toilet is. If they could be opened, I don't know how we could perhaps sponsorship or something, or look at the planning condition to see whether they were supposed to be contributing to the cost. But that's a facility that is available 24/7 and it's a paid facility. Can we have, looking at this map, there are going to be areas which are hot pots for visitors. If we could have some physical maps, metal ones or whatever, on locations which say nearest facilities are. Not everybody has an app on their phone, and I know when I go abroad now, because there's no free Wi-Fi, and it's not that easy to be able to get your phone out to find out where things are. And the other thing was, in terms of antisocial behaviour and design, again, going forward, whatever we do, we're going to have to ensure these facilities are designed to minimise antisocial behaviour and costs. So can we look to see at the reported antisocial behaviour in Network Rail's toilets and other facilities to see what that level is, to see what they've done to design it out so we can incorporate it? And do we have a facility on our app where the venues can report antisocial behaviour so that we can keep track of that? And equally, the users, are they able to report if they went into a venue and then they were told they couldn't use it, if they went into the venue and there was no toilet paper, it was dirty or whatever? Because if we are giving somebody £600 a year for the public to use it, we're not monitoring it, and therefore we need to do something to monitor it and ensure we've got that feedback so we can refine and develop. Thank you, Chair. I would just say, using the toilet, again, it would be really helpful if public health officers could input into these reports, because if we look on the Health and Wellbeing Board side of all of this, having toilet provisions is a basic public health function. It really does prevent people from travelling if you have medical issues where you are reliant on being able to find a toilet. You are literally confining people to their homes, but they have to travel and they might have hospital appointments or whatever. So it's not just a case of it's a nice to have addition. It's something that we fundamentally need if we're going to be an inclusive and accessible city. And as I said, if you look back in history, we don't want our streets going back to the way they used to in the 18th and the 15th century.
Okay, now I'm going to take that as the last contribution, unless somebody wants to shove their hand up right now, because we've been on this for nearly an hour, and so we'll take this as the roundup, please, Ian, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just picking up some of those points. I think it's reassuring members, I think, are aligned with us in terms of trying to make the very best that we can of the community toilet scheme. I think Joe mentioned it earlier. At the moment, it is a bit of a challenge to work out usage and feedback about quality of provision and how people find that valuable. I think that's perhaps one of the things we need to take and look at how we could go to that next step, to see if we can gather some of that information that we don't currently yet gather, like people's satisfaction with the facilities that are being offered to them by some of these premises. Along those lines, we are looking at things in a more modern context now. We're not just saying you're offering, you are willing to be part of the scheme, that's great, here's the signage, get on with it. We're getting premises coming to us saying, we can offer accessible toilets, and as opposed to just any toilet. So actually looking at quality as well as quantity is something we're really keen to move forward to. I have to say the automated public conveniences were something that were looked at in terms of the costs, the usage and the antisocial behaviour issues. It's why they were closed because of those difficult choices I mentioned earlier. The usage of them was so low, and the ASB stuff that went on in them was so high that we just don't feel confident that balances out at the moment, regrettably. And in terms of signage, come back to where I think Joe started, the Legible London signage. We will have 230 refreshed Legible London physical signs, totems, where if you want to find something, it will be on there. So it's not just a question now of relying on digital media. It's physical in your hand. It will be on signage. It will be on digital if you want it. So I think in the round we've sought to progress everything that we can do within this sphere, but we appreciate there's always still more we can do. But the financial pressures, as members recognise, are still there, and we're very happy to bring something that's focused on that and that question of fees and charges for use of our two staffed facilities. We'll bring that back. I think it's usually early in the new year, January. So we'll bring something back in January, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, and thank you to the officers for a very comprehensive and detailed report and giving us a really good airing to answer our questions. And you know, I think to sort of round it up, we'll be looking at the fees and charges issues. Personally, I think it's great to see the planning using the planning mechanism to have provision, and those provisions do include changing places, facilities. It's good to see those starting to come on stream, and I think that is probably a vision of the future. A little is having these large developments, and as they go up, having those facilities. And I think a good suggestion in relation to hotels, which you're correct, Marianne. Hotels tend to be more welcoming environments than pubs in relation to the community toilet scheme. But I think a huge amount of work has been done, and I'm sure we will come back to these issues, but I would like to think that we'll come back to these issues sort of as an annual review rather than incremental on a anecdotal basis throughout every meeting of throughout the cycle. So that's an information paper, and we're now going to move on to item number 6.
Item number 6, questions on matters relating to the work of the committee. No questions have been received in advance of this meeting. Do members have any questions?
Takes item number 7.
Any other business that the chairman considers urgent? I'm not aware of any other business, Chairman.
I don't, which takes us to item number 8.
Exclusion of the public. This is for decision.
Agreed. Thank you. So we do have an item to discuss in non-public, so we'll just wait for the live stream to be disconnected. Is it worth asking?